a big F you to Google. Try again, Google. Keep trying. Anyways, last video I talked about slavery and about how Jesus Christ came along and with his teachings, love thy neighbor, call no man master, that Jesus Christ laid the foundation in the world for the abolition of slavery. It's just true. You know, I mean, he forced Judaism to reform, okay, and he laid the foundation for, I guess, 1,776 years later, to where we in America would use those teachings to set a precedent in our country that all men are created equal. And then we would put our money where our mouth is, and we would go and fight a war against ourselves to rid ourselves of slavery. Okay? And how important that is. And how I've seen this incremental attempt by primarily the left to take God out of everything. Well, they hate Christianity, right? Well, why? I don't know. Maybe they want to hate their neighbor. Maybe they hate their neighbor and they want to enslave their neighbor. Yeah, that's it. You know, the thing is I just read a story about how with this coronavirus, college professors are going to like online classes, and they're going to be recorded teaching their classes. And a couple of teachers a lot of left-wing professors don't want anybody to know what they're teaching these kids in their classrooms. One professor even said, I teach in my class white nationalism, white supremacy. Okay, and it's a black woman. Now, I rarely do anything racial, but race ties into this. Because my family came from Ireland to America. And when the Irish got here, they were treated very badly. Okay, they were slaves. Nobody will tell you that. I'm sure that white nationalist professor wouldn't, and a white supremacist instructor wouldn't tell you that. Okay? So that's my heritage. When we got here, we were slaves. Eventually, somebody else came. Another Polish came. And it was like, okay, we're going to focus on the newcomers. We eventually worked our way out of it. And not only that, it was my ancestors who fought for the Union in the Civil War, okay, to free the slaves. My ancestors died fighting for that black woman who's a professor to have all the freedom in the world to teach children in college that I'm a Nazi. Oh, that's right. My bloodline and my heritage is also defeating the Nazis. So, what I'm trying to say is that these professors, these leftists, these Christian haters, where were you? Where were you to end slavery? Right? Like, what's the problem with Christ's teachings? Why don't you like it? Because you like slavery. Because you don't like your neighbor. Leftists hate their neighbors. They attack their neighbors. Look at it. Look at any Democrat city. Neighbors all shooting each other. Everybody hates each other. No fun. So what really did end slavery? It wasn't communism. It was Christianity in the United States. So, I'm tired of jerkwads like these commie professors, CNN, or some entertainer coming around, taking a big dump on Christianity, and then relying on the goodness that Christ preached as far as turning the other cheek and love your enemy, relying on that to ensure that they get to continue doing what they're doing and lying. Well, see, the thing that they forget is that Jesus, think of Jesus as more of a doorway to God. Like, we all know that God thinks you're guilty. Okay? He knows you're guilty and he wants to convict you and condemn you, and you're going to need representation. You're going to want defense counsel, and that's Jesus. Okay? So I want all of the leftists and everybody to remember this, that if you take Jesus out of my life, you're going to be left with the Old Testament God. And what does the Old Testament God have a history of doing? Killing the firstborn of the Egyptians, sending plagues, swallowing people up with the earth, sending people to hell by killing them with the sword, no pity, that kind of thing. How lucky is everybody that Jesus came along? How lucky is everybody that my heritage exists? Pretty damn lucky. You know, to continue with the race thing, you know, I'm not a racist because I was taught to value the sacrifices of my ancestors, to value Christ. Okay. I have seen what in my interactions with the African American community, I have been greeted with the what would you call it? The denial of my family ever fighting for the Union. And this is truth. It's more truth. For the longest time, it seemed like 9 out of 10 black folks that I ran into would insist that I was a slave owner. Okay, would call me cracker. And have this kind of racial superiority doctrine. Now, I'm seeing that change. And that's good. Because I think it's kind of folly to take somebody like this is where the leftists fail themselves and everyone else. If you teach people that my heritage, the history of what actually happened, if you tell people that my family were slave owners, you know, and you put it in people's heads that because I'm white with blonde hair and blue eyes, that I had something to do with slavery, when really we had everything to do with stopping it. That's just a bottomless pit for you. So, I usually don't comment on race. But a lot of other people do. That's just what I wanted to say. Because unlike a lot of these college-educated people, you know, I've been poor. I've lived in black neighborhoods. I've interacted with black people my whole life. Okay? I've gotten along with them. I've been able to navigate pretty well, for the most part. I'm just not really sure where all these problems really came from. I mean, in my dealings with people in life, co-workers, neighbors, anything like that, more or less you could figure it out. I mean, you might have differences with somebody, but you can figure out how to live next to somebody, you know? Like, you can figure out, okay, what it is. And you can make it work. I've seen a long history of that. A long history of it. With everybody. And not just blacks. Any color of person. So I really wonder where all of this reverse racism comes from. You know? Well, it's taught, obviously. Obviously it's taught. But when you know, it's like I read the what is the Passover? Well, the Passover is when the Jews were enslaved by the Egyptians and they were led by God out of bondage. They were led out of slavery, right? I can't tell you how many people that I've had conversations about the Bible with who want to say that, like, America was like America was like the foundation of all racism, you know? It's like I've talked to people and I've said, you know that slavery and racism have been around since the beginning of time, right? It's like, no, America's and I say, are you a Christian? Yeah. Have you read the Bible? Yeah. Have you seen that Charlton Heston movie about where Let My People Go? Yeah. What do you think that was all about? Slavery. The Egyptians had enslaved the Jews. So, I'm just not really impressed with the whole racism thing today. Because that is not what my ancestors fought and died for. I mean, when you look at this country, okay, women, in the beginning it was, okay, so all men are created equal. And then we set about actually trying to achieve that goal. Okay, undo slavery. No slavery. Okay, we fought a war, we made it illegal. All men are created. Well, what about women? Well, I guess you're right there too. Okay, so we'll add women in too. Women are part of mankind. Okay, good. And then you have this backwards thinking to go ahead and try to say that didn't happen. That no, like, racism and slavery are still alive. Or racism. No, I mean, what? That we solved it. You know, we've moved on from it. A lot of other parts of the world haven't. What about them? You know? So the hypocrisy is really, really glaring. But can't you see what they did? You know, removing God, removing all that. Whether or not you believe God exists, there's still an ethical foundation in it. There's the idea that you can reform bad ideas in Christianity. You know, like, hey, you know, Christ comes along. What is all this? What are all these laws? This has nothing to do with any of it. You need to change it, right? Look at all the great results we get when we heal somebody on Sunday and save their life. Okay? Isn't that great? You should change for the better. And we've been doing that. So, I don't know. the thing about it is it's all to start a fight. All this is just to start a fight. You know, if you're a professor and you're teaching, you're taking up the entirety of your class time to teach young, impressionable minds that America is like a white supremacist nation. No wonder you don't want anybody finding out. Like, what do you think would happen if you tried to teach that to me? What do you think would happen if I found out you were teaching that to my kid? You wouldn't be a teacher for very long. Your institution wouldn't last. So, I don't know. Race is a non-subject. Race is unimportant. To me, if you're obsessed with race, then that's your problem. I interact with anybody, regardless of race, religion, creed, origin. I always have. That's the way I was raised. You know, the funny thing about that is I've been preached at and preached to by lefties forever. More and more about how communism's good and America's racist. But then when you scratch away the surface, you start to see that and diversity is good, that they're not diverse. Almost every time with these college kids who are put in positions of authority and make decisions, who have been trained to hate, it's like, oh, they want to call me a racist. Like, I'm a racist because I have conservative values and I'm a Christian and I'm white. Okay. Like, forget the fact that I interact and a lot, I have black people come into my house, I have Muslims come into my house, I talk to them, I'll eat with them. So there's diversity there in my life, but when I look at hey, all your friends are white. All your friends are white, is what I end up finding out. Like, how are you going to call me a racist when I'll eat with, interact with, talk to any race, religion, creed, or origin, and you won't? I had this one guy especially, this gay guy, loved to call me a racist. And I started realizing, I called him out one day, because he was very promiscuous, but he only had sex with other white guys. I said, what's up with your choices here? Why don't you have any black boyfriends, or any Indian boyfriends, or any non-white friends or boyfriends at all? You know what he did? He took a plate of food and threw it on the ground upside down. That was his answer. Good answer, right? Like, caught ya, throw a temper tantrum. Now, me being who I am, having been through what I've been through, as I said, I know where all this shit ends. Teaching kids racism, all that. You want to fight me. Bad idea. Maybe somebody took a videotape one time of me fighting. If they did, and they didn't edit it, you can probably see pretty quickly that's not a good idea, right? So, it's the kind of thing, like, is America a perfect nation? No. Am I a perfect person? No. Is the Old Testament perfect? No. Is anything, this idea of like everything has to be absolutely perfect and utopia is unrealistic. What you need to do is kind of the foundation set down. Okay, that's a bad idea, let's change it. When's the last time the left changed an idea they had? Never. Never. They never change. Honestly, the Democrats, the left, and I know we're supposed to come together, but I just can't stand them anymore. They're working off a playbook from Karl Marx. You see how, can you see that? You know, it's like talking about the black community in America. What's that guy's name? Rules for Radicals, Saul Alinsky. There was a big communist movement because the black population in the 60s, obviously, we were still growing out of that, the civil rights movement, right? We're changing we're reforming. We're not gonna do segregation anymore, okay? And there's pains going through that. Well, you had a bunch of white, elitist, liberal communists kind of infiltrate the black community and teach the black community militant communism. And you can really see how that's had an effect on the public image. You know, like some of their thoughts, their ideas, came right out of that communist Rules for Radicals book. And it's led to nothing but disaster for them as far as representation in government, anything. So that's where the racism comes from, because you can't have this kind of cognitive dissonance, like two conflicting ideas, two different realities cannot exist in the same reality. You can't have America, Judeo-Christian America, founded on those principles, with a constitution that can be amended and changed, with a march towards stopping slavery, with a march towards civil rights. Blacks can vote, women can vote, okay, to make everybody as equal as possible, and then come around and say, yeah, but that's racist. I mean, come on. Now, when I say that I've been exposed to lots of different types of people, I have been. So I usually don't bring up anything racial. But honestly, the majority of my interactions with non-whites have been good. I mean, my interactions with everybody have primarily been workable and doable. So I don't get why these professors and leftist Democrats continue to try to sow discord and racism. And it really blows my mind about how well it's worked up until now. Because now, like I said, it's like the day of Revelations. I mean, you can clearly see that the media and the leftists and the universities, they're not on the side of any American. Whether you're black or white or Chinese or Indian or Hispanic, they don't. It's like this COVID-19 thing. Like, here we go, we've got this unknown virus, this new virus from China that we don't know anything about. And immediately, what do the leftists demand? Absolute perfection right now. Right now. Absolute perfection. Which isn't going to happen. So we go about, okay, close the borders. Bad idea. No, it's not. That's racist. No, it isn't. Okay, and then to the point where testing, we don't have enough tests. or we don't have enough ventilators, or we don't have enough this, or we don't have enough that. And it's like, yeah, we're scrambling. Like, we realize, okay, our medical supply lines are almost wholly owned by China. So in order for us to be able to treat ourselves, we need to redo the supply chain, and we need to do it now. And that's the focus. And all the Democrats have is like, that's racist. So there's this new hydroxychloroquine, or whatever it is, which is like a 30-year-old drug that treats malaria. That's a known in every example except whether or not it's effective against the coronavirus and what happens. Okay. So it's like, okay, some promising results. We're going to start giving it to people, and the Democrats go from like before Trump announces it, they're like, yeah, this actually might be something that can work for treating this coronavirus, and then Trump says, yeah, we're going to use hydroxychloroquine, and then suddenly it's like you're feeding people arsenic. So, okay, liberal media, all right, leftist communists, what are you going to say as like an elitist, rich person? What are you going to say to a poor black person, or a poor Hispanic person, or even a poor white person for that matter, or anybody of any race or origin or creed who has the coronavirus, when they come to you and they say, hey, let me try that hydroxychloroquine, and you say no? You're going to tell them no. Is that what you call giving a shit? I guess, final point, whereas, what does Christ say here? He says, do not think that I have come to bring peace. I've come to bring a sword, to set brother against brother, father against son, when he comes back and the end of time. Until then, if you're a sinner, he's there for you. But it always ends there. The whole Christianity thing that we've been doing in this country is to try to reason and forestall all of that dumb violence and hatred. And we're doing a good job of it still. But that's where it ends. With these communist types. The Democrats, it's all misery. But I want them to remember. I want the Democrats to remember that this is an ethics book. Okay, it's a foundation for good ethics, especially the reform part. But it's an ideal. It's something that that it's hard to live up to. And the temptation for people to destroy their enemies is so real. That there is a chance that if you get exposed as being a total hack and teaching kids to hate each other, there's going to be reprisals. Thank God that it's not concentration camps like they wish it was. Leftists in this country pray for the day concentration camps come along, either for them or other, so that they can run them to put Christians in, or white people, or whoever, or Trump supporters, or so that the Trump supporters and everybody can put them in it, because it's just a hack. Gotta have it. Gotta talk about it, bring it up, scare people with it. But it's not going to go down like that. I think they're starting to realize that. Like, they've been hoping for the longest time that they can push this conflict, that they can make us violent like they are, like their masters are in China or wherever, and that's their goal. If it doesn't, it's not happening though. They wanted a civil war. They still do. They want to come take your guns away because they know you're not going to let them. They want to force medicine on you, even though they know you don't want it. They're going to call everybody racist, and even non-whites who don't agree with them are racist. I mean, you've seen this thing about Antifa screaming at a black police officer, a white kid screaming at a black police officer, calling him a racist. So it's falling apart for him. They're the blind leading the blind. They fall into a pit. Yeah, I usually don't go around telling people, hey, I'm not a racist, for a myriad of reasons. I may have been racist or mean at some point, but that's not who I am, right? That's another thing about the Judeo-Christian American way. It's like, oh, what did you do? Did you negligent homicide? Did you steal something? Did you screw up? You made a mistake? Okay, well, the penalty isn't draconian. It's not like a death sentence. You know, it's like, okay, you can be reformed. Like, we believe this. We believe in you. You know, you're really not the career criminal that you look like. You know, you've got a shot because we care. As opposed to like China, who LeBron James belongs to. He's part of their camp. Some jerkwad like him. You know, defending the Chinese government and their way of life. When it comes to the Chinese, say, hey, did you just expose that coronavirus, Dr. Li Lijiang or whoever? Did you just expose the coronavirus coming out of our country? Well, you're a dead man now. You didn't even commit it. You didn't even do anything wrong. You tried to do something good, and that's why you're getting it. Okay, thanks, LeBron. Nobody needs you. Except China. You might call that racist. Is that racist? Why? Do you see something in LeBron's defense of China that has anything to do with race? I don't. Him being a black guy doesn't change the fact that him defending China doesn't have anything to do with race. And you can't use somebody's skin color in order to, as an excuse for them to push lies. I'm not impressed with his basketball skills or his money or anything like that. To me, he's just a mouthpiece for murderous Chinese communists. Can he even read? Serious question. It's like people have been trained to just react violently. It's like, well, no, I think I'm gonna actually support Donald Trump with the way that he's in the coronavirus, and then violence, right? Well, actually, my heritage and my family is that we fought to free the slave, and violence towards me, hatred and violence. Used to it. It never worked for anybody. I'm still here. You can't silence and kill everybody. So we'll see where it goes. But a stark contrast from what kids are learning in college about how somebody like me is just racist. And racism, and white nationalism and supremacy. But then over here in the real world, in my lifetime, the majority of interactions with people haven't had anything to do with, that's not what it's like. So, I don't know, maybe I can snap my fingers and turn on a light and go, see, look, we're getting along. Wouldn't that be nice? Another bad thing about this, well, two things before I end. This whole push to indoctrinate young people into the idea that everybody's racist will lead to actual racists, because there's a saying that if you're going to do the crime, be prepared to do the time. But if you force somebody to do the time and they haven't committed the crime, what incentive is there for them to not commit the crime? You know, like if you go around calling everybody racist and they're condemned for it and hated for it, what incentive do they have not to be a racist? Very little. I mean, you have to be a person of integrity. You know? Or somebody who is a racist, okay, you'll never get those people back from that cliff. So, there's that. So we'll see. Oh, hey, did you know that the woman who created Planned Parenthood was a eugenicist or a white supremacist who targeted the black community with abortion? How is it that that is true? But in today's world, we see, or the left sees Planned Parenthood as like a savior. Like, you know, love the poor, low income, disaffected, anybody, but they've targeted the black community and they try to act like they haven't. Like, no, we're not no, our founder of Planned Parenthood wasn't a total racist, eugenicist kind of Nazi person. Well, yeah, they were. How did you wrangle anybody to believe that they weren't? Probably by indoctrinating them at school, right? Like, hey, here's Mr. Owen. He's an imperfect person, but he's not a racist. Well, yes, he is. No, he's not. His family fought to free the slaves in the Civil War for the North, for the Union. No, they didn't. I mean, come on. I don't know. I'll stop. This is something that I'm going to put on YouTube. This is one of my teachings. Okay, I guess I can be a professor too. And I'm going to put this up on YouTube for all of you students. And everybody can see it. Because I'm not afraid of being transparent or, you know, having everybody know. I'm not hiding anything.